This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We continue in Devorah, and we're just finishing up today the second aspect of Gemilas Chasadim, which something we do down here in this physical world parallels something we're seeking to accomplish up in the Sefirah, and that is the mitzvah of Milah, Lamol es Havlad. So the Talmud Devorah says that is to likewise do the parallel with the Creator, that whenever any kind of shell or foreskin that exists in the Sefirah of Yesod, you should circumcise it. Now, Yesod is the Midah, is the Sefirah, that accepts and receives all the Shefa from the upper Sefirahs, and then delivers it to the Sefirah of Malchus. Similar to Yesod is compared to the Milah. Just like the Milah brings all the latent life force of the human being, and then it allows it to come down and be recreated, so too the Sefirah of Yesod, which is connected to the Milah, brings down all the Shefa from the upper Sefirahs and brings it down to Malchus. And therefore one should pursue all things that remove the Arla, and thereby that is referring to bringing people back in Shuvah, circumcising the foreskin of their hearts. And by doing so, you are going to cause that the Tzadik ha'elyon, the supernal Tzadik. Now, what in the world is a supernal Tzadik? The supernal Tzadik refers to the Midah of Yesod. The Sefirah of Yesod is called the Tzadik Elyon. And when the Tzadik removes the Arla of his heart, he causes a rectification in the upper worlds. As we said, Yesod is mashpia to all the olamais, but as long as there is some kind of interference, it interferes with the hashpa. And this midah of Yesod, which gives off shefa, is called Tzadik. So it's interesting that Yesod is called Tzadik, as we've said many times. Who in Tanakh are called Tzadik? Yosef is called the Tzadik in the Navi Amais. Noach is called the Tzadik, and what they have in common is they all fed the world. The Rebbeinu Shalom is called the Tzadik, where Pesach es yadechu masbia l'chol chai tzadiku Hashem b'chol derachav, or the pasuk in Tehillim, Perek Lamed Zayin pasuk Chaf Aleph, Tzadik choynein v'noisein. So the midah of Tzadik is the midah of giving, and therefore the Sefirah of Yesod, which accepts all the shefa of the olamais and gives it over, is called Tzadik. The only thing is, you don't want there to be a blockage there. If there's a blockage there, it can't do its job. So therefore, by removing all blockages, by removing other people's arla, namely uncovering their heart, making their heart more receptive to tshuva, you likewise are opening up the channels of the midah of Yesod, which is the Tzadik ha'elyon, and it's able to do what it has to do. Therefore, Pinchas, who preserved the kedusha of Klal Yisrael's arla by standing up for Inyanei kedusha, so he thereby did chesed in the Sefirahs, and therefore he was zoicha to kahuna. As we're going to see, kahuna is the midah of chesed. Even though you would have thought, what do you mean? Kohanim are considered, maybe somewhat agitated or with a hot temper. But nevertheless, kahuna is considered to have the midah of chesed. Leviim are considered the midah of din. And that is primarily accomplished through shira, which is sort of counterintuitive. If you would have asked somebody, music, song, is it midas hachesed or midas hadin? I think most people would have said music is for sure midas hachesed. But actually, come to think of it, it makes a lot of sense. Because those who are musical, what side? It comes from the left side of the brain. Midas hadin. It's not midas hachesed, it's midas hadin. Okay, but that's beyond the scope of today's shiur. Really, everything we're about to say is beyond the scope of today's shiur, but we're going to say it anyway. Let's set forth a few principles. What a tzaddik that fights his yetzer and circumcises the arla of his heart is called tzaddik yesod olam, and that is because by causing the Sefirah of Yesod to be effective, it can then be mashpia life to the whole world, and he's now the foundation of the whole world. The Yishla HaKadosh says, the famous Gemara, Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa was a great tzaddik, Kol ha'olam kulay nizayin b'shvil Chanina b'ni. Literally, the whole world was sustained in the merit of Chanina, but the Shlach HaKadosh says, Bishvil, through the pathway that Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa created, and he opened up, because he was a tzaddik, so through his pathway, all Shefa of the world came down through Bishvil, through the pathway of Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa. Now, I told you, where's Aryeh? I said we have a question on this week's Parsha. And that is, the question was, Nassim, did you try to send me an answer to this yesterday?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. You have to explain it to me, but maybe you'll say it now. But let me say the question. The question is that the Shem Mishmon Parshas Nitzavim asks the following stira. In Parshas Nitzavim it says, "Umal Hashem lekachas levavcha v'yesav zarecha." God will circumcise your heart. And in Parshas Ekev, this week's Parsha, it says, you will circumcise the foreskin of your heart. So who's going to circumcise the heart? You or God? By the way, I remember now the Ramon Yoredeya brings down the halacha not to eat the arla of the heart of an animal. Okay, anyway. So it's a stira. Who circumcises the heart? You or God? So the Shem Mishmol says as follows. He says, God made a person yashar, that we don't intrinsically have any inclination for Ra. However, when we commit sin, it covers over the right side of the heart. The right side of the heart is where Shechina resides. And when the Yetzer Hara is entrapped and encircled and covered up with sin, he can't be activated. Rashi says, Orlas levavchem oitem levavchem v'kisuyav. And therefore, it is the avoid of a person to remove the klipa from the right side of the heart. This klipa is called the arla. It is the covering that we bring upon ourselves through sin, but in Parshas Ekev, it doesn't say Hashem's going to circumcise the arla of your heart. It says, Umal Hashem es levavcha v'yesvav zarecha. Nothing about an arla, because it's not talking about the right side of the heart. Now we're talking about in the end of days, the Yetzer Hara lives on the left side of the heart, and the day will come where God will remove not the arla of your heart, but the Yetzer Hara who lives mamish on the left side of your heart. So this week's Parsha, our avodah is to remove the covering that is self-inflicted, and that is the pasuk Umal Hashem Umaltem es Orlas Levavchem Masha'en Kain in the pasuk in Nitzavim. That is where God will exercise the Yetzer Hara. Now Pinchas circumcised the heart of Klal Yisrael by protecting them from arayos, and then therefore quid pro quo the Rebbeinu Shalom gave him the midah of kahuna. Now how do we know kahuna is chesed? Listen to this. Tumecha v'yurecha liish chasidecha. So we see the midah of kahuna is the midah of chesed. However, the Zohar writes that kohen is a midah of chesed, Levi, because the kohen brings down the shafra from above to below. Because what number signifies lamala min teva? 8. What number symbolizes teva? 7. How do you bridge the gap? 7.5. Kohen is gematria 75, 7.5. He connects the upper to lower. He brings down the on from high to on low. Masha'en Kain, the Levi, is midas hadin. He is mislave. He accompanies. He is mavatel himself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Somehow through Shira, he connects to. He is on the side of midas hadin. And what else was Pinchas zoicha to? He was zoicha to shalom, because shalom, says the Shari Oira, is the midah of chesed, and the midah of Yesod is called shalom. And the ultimate shalom, friends, is when the midah of Aleph Daled Nun Yud and Yud Kei Vav Kei come together. Adkan, you hear that? The ultimate shalom is when Yud Kei Vav Kei and Aleph Daled Nun Yud come together. Now we happen to have learned a malbim on Parshas Noach that if you take Yud Kei Vav Kei and Aleph Daled Nun Yud and you do Yud times Aleph is 10, Hey times Daled is another 20, we're up to 30. Vav times Nun is 300. So 30 is one dimension of the Teva, 300 is another dimension. Hey times Yud is 50, 50 is another dimension. So now we have 380. Shalom with the 4 letters is 380. So now we're learning a new detail. The ultimate peace is the peace between Midas Hadin and Midas Harachamim. Yud Kei Vav Kei Aleph Dal Nun Yud. When they come together and when they do Hakah, they multiply, you get Shalom. Not only conceptually, but even in Gematria. So for those who thought that I only say Gematria Wednesday morning and Friday morning, no, even in Tamar Devorah, Joe, we could still do some Gematrias. Okay? So, and Shalom is always a great way to end. So, my bracha is Hashem oiz amoy yitain, Hashem yivarches amoy v'ashalom. So, Reb Nosson, what was the answer that you gave me yesterday?
It's a little difficult for me to speak right now, but
okay.
Nesiva Shalom and Parsha Nitzavim.
Okay, so Rabbi say, think about this question over Shabbos. In this week's Parsha, it says what? It says, umaltem es orlas levavchem, and in Parsha, in this week's Parsha, umaltem es orlas levavchem, you do it, and in Parshas Nitzavim, umalashem es levavcha v'es levav zarecha. Okay, Rabbi say, have a great day, a great Shabbos, and we'll see you Be'ez Hashem Monday when we're up to Ois Gimel. Okay? Kol Tov, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you very much. Tomorrow, Rabbi?
Yeah, Friday morning. Friday morning. Thank you. Everyone's invited tomorrow morning at 10:35 a.m. Shkayach. Kol Tov. Shabbos.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.